Takes a minute to. Cool. All right, guys, welcome. I've got Byron Dyce from Blueprint Fitness here with me today. He's a longtime client here of Factory Forge, and one of the reasons why I want to bring you guys in the mix and really get an understanding of our program. The best way I know how to do that is to talk to the crew that's in it and who I work with on an everyday basis. So, Byron, welcome.
Appreciate you having me here, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for being on, man. So how I want to run these calls is really just to give people listening in kind of the firsthand experience of what you've gone through, how we first got connected, and really what we've been able to accomplish inside working together. So before we do any of that, I really want to get them educated on your background and who you are, because I think it's important to understand just how we all start is very similar with that passion and that interest in building this into a career in a business. So we actually connect because we're both Gainesville guys. It just so happens you're not in Gainesville anymore, but you've been a long-term coach for over 12 years. You actually started in personal training, and then now you've ended up settling into Chicago. And you've got a cool story because you've actually purchased a business. A lot of people don't necessarily go that route. So yeah, help me understand a little bit, and people listening, how you got started and how you arrived at kind of where you're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have two main professional loves, right? One is the business side and the other is the fitness side. So I knew long term, my end goal was going to be something that allowed me to do both of those, right? So I started off doing my scholastic stuff in the business side of things, doing accounting and business administration, but all of my extracurricular stuff in fitness through my own anecdotal research, getting into Gainesville Health and Fitness, which is a huge resource in our hometown from an education standpoint, to start to marry those two things together. So I got into the business side of things, or the very, very entry level into the gym. At Gainesville Health and Fitness, it was called a floor instructor, right? And it was basically just helping people out within the gym. I soon then got into personal training because I knew I wanted to start testing out a bunch of philosophies and theories and methods that I had in my head that I've read and wanted to start to kind of formulate my plan from a training method standpoint, not only for myself, but for other people. Something that I thought was, fun, smart, effective, all of the above. So started testing that out in personal training, and then soon knew that I wanted to expand my bandwidth, right? Because as a personal trainer, I would see, anywhere between 12 to 15 people each week, but each of those people would come 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week. So you can imagine that's a lot of training hours from a personal training standpoint. So I wanted to create an atmosphere where I still knew everybody within the gym, but I could still create real change with that personal connection, right? So fast forward, I linked up with a good friend and old personal training client, Chris Dyer, who's my partner, and we started discussing this to make it a reality. We created our business plans and all of that stuff on the back end, and found it most feasible to find an existing gym that had some voids in their business systems, fitness systems that we kind of take over, rebrand, revamp, all of the above. So my wife and I and the dog were mobile, so we kind of opened up a nationwide search to find this and what was going to fit best. And we ended up in Chicago taking over a gym that was called RowFit. It was a small boutique gym. In 2014, come in, revamp it, rebrand it, all of the above. So that started, and that's really the story of how I kind of like got into where we're at right now.
Yeah, and the more I even hear your story, I can see you're like you when you dive in very systematically about how to like learn and consume information, and then I can see how you like pull these things into both say the training side as well as the business side. And I love how you put that because there really are two things. It's like we start off as a trainer wanting to fulfill that passion and help people, but then we realize that the other side of the coin is to actually make the numbers work, the business run smooth, and hey, there's a real lifestyle here if you're working the 45, 60 hours you talked about. So this may be hard for some people to realize. So I want you to kind of spell it out the best you can, but like, what were the first few years of business ownership like for you, getting going? Because obviously you have entered that mastery side of coaching and working with the client, but like the business side can be, I'd say, the more challenging for a lot of coaches out there, because it's not the love. It's not the first love, at least.
Yep. I would say for anybody who watches sports or played sports in the past, the first 2 years felt like being in the fourth quarter of a football game that was tied for the entire quarter. So it's almost like every decision, every day was a fight, and everything, had either a consequence or a reward, right? So the first 2 years was basically just being in like a constant fight of like, okay, cool. Like we came in with this system, we came in with the business plan, but when you get into it, everything changes, and it's almost like this ever evolving process, because it's different everywhere, right? So like my gym's different than, Chris's gym, and is different than Dan's gym, your gym, all of the above. So you come in with a plan, but those plans have to be as fluid as possible, because you are just constantly like changing to kind of fit your mold to get to your end goal. So that's the best analogy I could say is it's just like, is a football game tied in the fourth quarter for the entire 2 years.
Yeah. And kind of thinking in that role, it's like, you've got the pressure is, what popped in my head of like winning, but also like, getting to a level where you feel like you're in control and, like of the game in that analogy, or, for the business owner side, it's like holding on to all the moving parts is what I hear often is like, yeah, I just really love the coaching side, but that's like 1/10 of running the whole thing and being good at it. So I think a lot of coaches and more specifically, people that start businesses don't necessarily identify with being a good business owner. And for you, that was a goal of yours. So some people, I don't think, really understand it through that lens. So that's good that you put it that way. So there is this belief system that because I'm a coach, I can't be a good business owner, or I don't have the skills to do that. And it's very deflating or defeating for people. So talk to me a little bit about like at what point you had a business partner. You got through, the first 2 years, you made it through the fourth quarter to live another game. At what point do you say like, I need more help, I need more, resources, I need to hire a coach? Like, why does that pop in your head?
Well, the first thing that popped in my head is that I'm not reinventing the wheel, right? It's not like I'm the first gym ever to run, right? So the first thought was like, there are people who have gone through this already, made the same mistakes, and learned from those mistakes and documented those mistakes. So the first thing I thought was like, listen, somebody else has done this before. Like, maybe it would be a good idea for me to reach out. So that was the first thing that popped in my head. The second thing that popped in my head was, if I do find that person or I do find that company, then this is going to speed up my process of getting back to a lifestyle that I want to live, right? So, like going back to how I started in personal training and like grinding every week, and then, going into business ownership and then grinding every week there, eventually you want to get to this spot where you can enjoy your weekends, you can enjoy your nights and whatnot. So my two main thought processes was somebody else has done this before, number one. And number two, like I need to get to a spot where I can enjoy life outside of the gym at a faster rate. So yeah, those are my two first things that popped in my head.
Yeah. And I'm glad you spelled it out like that, because I think every gym owner in a business for at least a few years, you operate on like, and just like high dose of energy. And you're like, you really say, what the hell did I just do? And can I this way for more than just 2 years? And that feeling I had too. And that's about the time when I hired a business coach years ago too. It helped. I needed what what is the next step, and do I want to just keep figuring this thing out on my own? Was there maybe a mistake that's most memorable at that level of business? And you can talk a little bit about where you're at now, but like, does anything kind of speak to you on like the bigger mistake that it meant to you?
I wouldn't say there was one like big mistake. I would say there was probably just like a series of stuff that wasn't kept track of as much as it needed to be. And you know, like a lot of things that we work on a lot is just like being able to track things in real time, right? And being able to see things that need to be changed on a weekly basis and whatnot. And I think before we did it, you know, kind of semi-annually, but mostly annually, where we would take a picture of what the business looked like, but then we wouldn't take a real picture of it until another year later. And you can imagine, like, for 365 days, there's a lot of stuff that can go down within that time to put you on the right path or the wrong path. So I think that was the biggest thing of just like getting to the end of the year and being like, man, I know I crushed that year, but like I could have crushed it at a much better rate. Right. So I could have had way more profit at the end of the year if we would have done X, Y, and Z, if we would have seen this pattern beforehand or whatnot. So I think for me, it was just an understanding that like, hey, there are things that we could have fixed a long time ago that sometimes are easy fixes, sometimes are hard fixes. Right. But like you can imagine if there's something that you can change, a very small thing that like increases your revenue by, you know, $100 a month, like, but it took you 15 minutes to change. You know, I mean, it's just like, I mean, do the math. Like, it just makes sense.
Yeah, that you have a good point. So about that time, we start working. Fill people in a little bit, like, hey, what were you experiencing specifically in the business when you found us, and then like, why did you decide to make that decision to go with that?
Yeah. So I think what I was experiencing at the time, we had gotten really good at all of our extracurricular stuff, right? So making like different revenue streams, you know, whether that be like, okay, cool, we have this specialty program here, we have this event here and whatnot, but we were kind of not seeing the fact that our biggest room for growth was our membership base, right? And I think a lot of times as coaches and as businesses, we can get so caught up in kind of diversifying, you know, the different revenue streams that we kind of forget about the big one that's sitting right in front of us, right? Which is the membership base, of how we onboard people into the gym, of how we nurture those people, how we keep those people long term. So I would say that was kind of the thing that was going on, where it was just like, okay, like, you know, we have these different revenue streams, but you know, our expense level and our revenue are too close, right, to be successful long term. So like, where do we create more revenue but without increasing our expenses, with actually decreasing our expenses? So for me, I think that's where I was at. I was like, okay, cool. Like, you know, like we're diverse from a business standpoint, but we're not super profitable, right? Which, you know, in the end game is what we want to be. We want to be able to help people, but we also want to be able to pay bills and live our life at the same time. So that's where I was at when I was like, man, okay, cool. Like, I think we need some help along the way to kind of fine tune this stuff, so that, yeah, like, cool, if we show this amount of revenue each year, like that looks cool on paper, but like, you know, if you were, you know, I'm not selling business, but like if you were trying to sell a business, people would look at that revenue and then they would look at that expense and then they would look at your cash flow and they'd be like, well, this, you know, this is like a break-even business. That's cool and all, you know, yeah. If that's what you're going for, like, by all means, but like, you know, I'd like to take a vacation every once in a while.
Right. Yeah. And I think you hit it on the head. For a lot of young business owners, chasing revenue is this, I don't want to say, you know, it's important, but it can be very hyperinflated or ego driven, where if you don't pay attention to the expense, you're not actually looking at the whole picture. And that's where I start seeing, you know, our work together, and why it's so meaningful to you now is like, you've worked the 65 hours a week. you felt what it's like to generate that kind of income, but also put the time in. And then as you mature, you're like, well, how do I keep that income, but not work all the hours? And then if I work too little hours, I don't make the income. So like, where's that middle ground? And that becomes the lifestyle part of running these things, right? So, you move forward with the coaching program. Talk to the people out there listening a little bit more on what were some of the biggest changes that you've made to your business, and what you really got out of this level of coaching, you could say.
Yeah, I would say the biggest change was just how we track and monitor all things that go down within the gym, whether that be from an attendance standpoint, from a revenue standpoint, from a lead standpoint. How we track that stuff and keep track of it on a regular basis has been the biggest change with entering getting a business coach. So kind of like going back to what I was saying, before we would track things annually, right? And we would see the big picture, but we wouldn't see kind of those micro pictures along the way that directly influence what that looks like at the end of the year. So I would say having a system of tracking and being able to adjust on a weekly basis has been the biggest thing that we've implemented since starting the coaching the coaching program. And that kind of plays into really like creating that higher revenue with less expenses, where like, okay, we can track things that we're doing right now. Let's track it for the next 4 weeks. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, then let's change it, right? Or and versus like, okay, let's track this for the next year, and then we're like, oh, this didn't work, and I just wasted 11 months on this one program, right? So to speak. So I think the biggest thing with getting a business coach that we've had is just being able to be flexible with our programs and our systems within the business, and being able to adjust in real time, so that we're not losing money, really.
Yeah, and what comes to mind is that this is where a lot of gym owners get stuck, is they don't really set clear expectations, and then very few actually inspect and go back and look at whether they're on track or not. And it becomes this kind of game of just chasing revenue, if you would, and revenue isn't income. It's not profit, and
Yep.
and that's ultimately, like you said, the end of the game. So uh, yeah, that I think you exposed a lot of things that just come with maturity, but also if you don't have that mindset of, all right, let's set a strategy, let's make sure we set it up with clear expectations, and then let's see if we're actually tracking that. If not, we got to tweak and change. And that's one of the things I took away from you when we started really working on, okay, the growth factor. First, we know we have to inspect what we expect. That has everything to do with the number side. And then when we start getting into the moving parts of generating revenue, going out there and running the programs that are most profitable, what would you say has changed from the way that you're making money now, or the way that you're thinking about real growth? Like,
Yeah.
when I say
Yes.
growth, I don't immediately think revenue, and a lot of people do, but like, can you open that up a little bit?
Absolutely. So, I would say within the Factory Forge coaching plant program, we talk a lot about bandwidth, right? And as a coach head, we have been programmed to work harder, not smarter, right? We put our head down and we just go, and we just like battering ram, go, 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 which isn't sustainable, but it is like built into our DNA, right? So I think being able to do, I would say, the path of least resistance, right? So if I'm like, okay, cool. If my goal is for the gym is to have revenue of, $500,000, how do I get there as efficiently as possible without, going into that, put your head down and like battering ram standpoint. So being able to really create plans that are built around your specific bandwidth, and then delegate what needs to be done to the coaching team, it has been, just completely eye-opening and huge for the success of what we've been doing at the gym. So I would say, yeah, man, just getting a real picture of how much time you actually have to give to something, and then getting a real picture of how much time is actually needed to do something, and then making that plan, so to speak. So like going into our our quarterly meetings, when we kind of sit down and we hash out all issues, and then we break them down and rank them on a level of importance, and then we go from number one, and we're like, how long would number one take, right? Like, okay, like cool, like that would take 2 months. Okay, well, we got 1 month left over for number two, and like, okay, we're number two. Okay, we could get half of this done, right? So our main goals for this next 3 months are to get 1 or 2 big things done on that stuff. And I think just having that realization of that, like, this is what I can get done, like, sustainably, and then just repeating that over and over and over again is what creates that real growth and that long-term success over time. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest piece for me, is that realization of that I can only get X, Y, and Z done within these next 3 months. So I'm going to go in on X, Y, and Z. And we have this saying, like don't look at the shiny things. Like if I'm a shoe guy, right? So like if like I order a new Jordan, right, and
Yep.
like it comes to the gym on Tuesday, but I haven't got my task list done for the week, like I'm not going to look at that shiny thing until all of my stuff is done for the week. So like it's just like you kind of have to have that mentality, because there are infinite things you can improve within the business, but there are going to be things that create the biggest bang for your time, that you kind of focus on first, and then it's just like a domino effect down the line. So yeah, the ability to know what time actually is, and the ability to not look at the shiny things and really just focus,
Love
have
that.
been big.
One thing I wanted to touch on, because you're one of the best executors I've worked with, and not everyone has that level of confidence. And a lot of the issues that I hear owners talk about, because they feel secure in the service side or how they're caring for their client. But when it comes to marketing, when it comes to sales, those skills and those processes tend to be the most underdeveloped. Do you think that we can help someone like that in those two areas, that if they're kind of lacking? Like, can you talk a little bit on maybe the experience that you've gained in those areas?
Yeah, I mean, I would. That's definitely one of the biggest growths that's happened with me, being with Factory Forge, is in the marketing realm of creating a big picture plan, and then having action steps along the way. So everything from planning out the year of marketing, which has been huge for me, because that just goes back to everything that goes down in the gym, right? So like, if we're going to have all of these different revenue streams, then we're going to have to promote these revenue streams to get the most out of them, the most participation, all that stuff that then return, turns into the most success within the gym, not from a business standpoint, but also from a fitness standpoint. So I think that big picture stuff that we play around with is huge, but also on the micro level of just being able to put our time into what needs it most, whether that be the member referral side of things, whether it be paid advertising through Facebook or Instagram, looking through Google, developing systems to get reviews on Google, templates for Facebook ads, making those Facebook ads run nice and smoothly. Andrea does an awesome job with us on the technical side of things, to kind of teach how to use Facebook appropriately, and just like going back to assessing data and how to assess, are those ads working and what we need to change, and being able to have that collaboration with Factory Forge, but also with everybody else who's in Factory Forge from a gym owner standpoint, and just like playing off of those ideas has just created a really, really progressive environment to be able to market, and to be able to put systems in place that you can either delegate or you can take on yourself, but don't waste time, because from a marketing standpoint, we can waste so much time, and everything is just about awareness without creating a call to action and actual leads, right? So I think a lot of the stuff we talk about from a marketing standpoint is making sure that everything has a purpose, right? Every post has a purpose, every email has a purpose. And for the most part, for us, that purpose is generating more leads, which in turn generates more conversations, which in turn generates more members, which in turn generates more success from an athlete standpoint. So,
Love it.
yeah,
It's all a cycle, right?
yeah,
So, and the big thing is it's that it's teachable, right? Is what I hear
yeah,
too, is you can
yep,
learn these guys. We're not, uh, in a sense, I hate the term guru, where a lot of what I've learned over the years has been picked up, yes, by experience, but also I've hired a lot of coaches to coach me, and it's a platform of building people up. And what I love about one of your biggest wins, is that this lifestyle piece, right? Like you've put in place this team structure that allows you to operate your business with less time, and you get to take that time and pump that into, more higher and better use inside growing the company. But also we looked at your travel schedule. We looked at, the at home time versus the physically being in the gym time. And those are some real powerful wins that only really happen when you've got strong systems, you got a strong schedule of how to hold people accountable. And I think that's a big part of why I think you're finding the success and the win, is because you're a great executor too. So for those people out there, maybe that are skeptical of working with, gym consulting businesses or gurus, anything that you'd want to pass on to them about your experience with us? Because I know you've worked with a lot of people, and it's helpful to get this out there, because it's your take on it.
yeah, absolutely. So, when we sought out some help from Chris and Factory Forge, it's not like we were this like struggling business, right? Like, by no mean were we in the dirt, right? And one of the things that we know is that there's always room for improvement, right? And we need to be able to do that in a way that is efficient, because we only have so much time. And a lot of things that we would have done in the future, maybe 5-10 years from now, we have already accomplished in the last year, just working with Factory Forge. So I'd say one of the biggest things is, regardless of where you're at from a business standpoint, you are going to have things that you have big plans, right? Like, this is where I want to be 5 years from now. This is what want to be 10 years from now. The cool part about working with Factory Forge is really that it's put into a system that matches your bandwidth, but also matches your goals, right? And puts it in realistic views. And what that does from a headspace standpoint is by far like bigger than anything, right? So you know how it feels to like check off a box and to like reach a goal. Like for me, that's what I live for. Like, I like to check boxes off. I like to make a spreadsheet and like put it in green as it's being done. So it's just like a lot of those, like over time. And if you don't have that kind of sense of accomplishment on a regular basis, then you can definitely get burnout. It's almost like you don't see the progress, right? So I would say, like, if I had to go back and do it all again, like if I had Factory Forge from the get-go, I would have gone in as a brand new gym, right? Like, I wouldn't have needed the equipment. I wouldn't have needed the membership base. I would have gone in brand new, start from scratch. Let's go in. Like, I would build it that way. So, like, if that gives you a picture of like of how much I believe in Factory Forge and the stuff that they do, it's huge. And when I say this, like, it's not like again, like we've had a ton of success, and we've had a ton of success before, but we've had even just exponential success since being with Factory Forge, and on just a regular basis. Like, I know Chris keeps saying I'm a good executor, but like just to have like this constant reminder and constant insight to be like held accountable from a business standpoint is something that you don't really get without having a business coach. And it's almost like, when an athlete comes and they sign up for class and they're coming to class to meet with you as a coach or to meet with one of your coaches. Like, it's the same thing from a business perspective. I'm here, I'm going to meet with Chris, or I'm going to meet with Andre, I'm going to meet with Kyle. And we're going to talk about what's going right. We're going to talk about what's going wrong, and we're going to talk about what's going to give us our biggest bang for our buck to move forward on that stuff. So it's just a constant cycle of growth, and that constant cycle of growth will turn into whatever lifestyle you want to have. So for me, my parents always told me I was going to do something where I could wear tennis shoes and shorts to work. And if you like to wear tennis shoes and shorts to work, but you want to actually like make money doing it and helping people at the same time, like it's a beautiful marriage on that process.
Yeah, I've never quite had it explained that way, but I love that analogy. So, and Byron, I just want to say thank you for your time as we wrap up here. And, for those of you guys listening, if you're interested in, having a similar path, a plan like Byron, he mentioned a lot of success. He's a special guy, but it is not a special plan that he is working. It can be taught, it can be followed. And if you are interested in working with us or checking us out, go to factoryforge.com/call, and we can get connected and start moving in that direction.
Well, yeah, appreciate you having me on, Chris. And if anybody wants to reach out, have any questions about it, then feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or whatever. Get in contact with Chris. We'd love to talk to you.
Cool. Thanks, man.